Welcome to the space between. In spiritual circles, it seems that everyone has a pitch to help you land your dream life. Just look to social media and you'll see a course for anything you can possibly imagine. Coaches and quote-unquote gurus are pervasive in everything from spirituality and health to business and money. But how do we know who is right for our journey? And how do you spot people that have ill intentions and are just trying to capitalize on our pain, dreams, and life purpose? Keith Kemp joins me to unpack spiritual gurus. Keith is a breath specialist, transformational coach, and teacher who has helped thousands of people of all ages improve their mental, physical, and spiritual lives. His own path to his purpose as a coach has allowed a unique perspective on this theme. Keith and I discuss our respective paths and why discernment and energy protection are so key in the space between. Join us as we connect through conversation. Welcome to the space between. My name is Alyson and I am so excited to have my dear brother, Keith Kemp, to the space between. Welcome, friend.
Hey, thank you. Honored to be here.
I'm so happy that you're here. And we're doing this in person. I don't get to see you as much as I want to.
I know. Well,
so this is a beautiful thing.
Good to be together.
Yes, it absolutely is. And we have a really, I believe, all the topics are timely, but this one seems even a little bit more timely. We're going to talk about gurus in the spiritual realm.
Whoa.
Bam. That's a mind-blown emoji on the social clip. That's what we're going to talk about today.
Okay. Well, hey, I'm here for it.
And you and I have had some interesting parallels in our life when it comes to a lot of things, but especially what we're going to talk about today.
Yeah, it's quite a landscape to navigate.
Yes, it is. Absolutely. So why don't you tell us a bit about who you are sitting in this human suit avatar?
Yes. Keith Kemp, human.
Human being.
Yeah, just continuing to explore this thing called life, and grateful to have found what I feel like is my purpose, to be able to help others wake up to themselves, to their hearts, and provide some tools to be able to navigate this wild thing called life. I'm a breath and lifestyle coach, so I work with people one-on-one. Often also have a business called Sovereign Journey where we do workshops and retreats, so helping get people out of their everyday life to reconnect with themselves, with nature, and then got myself involved in another business where we're in the wellness space with sauna and cold plunge. So just really excited, got a lot of good things cooking, and yeah.
I'm so happy for you.
Thank you.
And you and I met a really long time ago.
Yes, we have seen several iterations of ourselves through our friendship. So it's been pretty cool to watch and to kind of go our separate ways and then kind of come back together on some real stuff.
Absolutely. And so for the listeners, we met through my husband, Oliver, who's been on the podcast, and I talk about from time to time here on this forum.
And go, Ollie.
You and Ollie have been friends since you're middle school.
Kids, yeah. Since junior high.
And then I met you when I met him because it's my boy Keith.
That's right.
It's my brother Keith. And you guys rolled deep with a bunch of dudes.
Oh, yeah.
And we had a lot of fun.
A lot of fun. Different kind of fun.
Total different kind of fun.
But yeah, we've kind of we've grown up together, if you will.
We have.
Yeah.
And it's a beautiful thing. And I had Ashley on the podcast, and you become very good friends with her, and her and I went through the party ways, and I think what's important about highlighting this is, first of all, it's a conversation, it's our relationship. I think it's key, but it's also, you never know who's going to reemerge or not mutate, it's probably the wrong word, but turn into a different type of person that you need in your life.
Yeah, well, and that's a beautiful thing about life is you can reinvent yourself at any friggin' time. Anytime you want.
You have no boundaries. It's your life.
Yes.
So.
And I think that's what is cool is that we have reinvented ourselves several times, but yet we've come back together. And I think we're the same people here that we've always been, right? But we've just kind of chiseled away.
Some shit.
Yes,
just a little bit of shit. I feel like I've shed like massive pounds, right? And I just want to say how much I love you and how proud I am of everything that you've gone through that's brought you to this moment, and the fact that you have shared your story and shared your heart and shared your purpose with the world. You know, so much of the podcast is connecting back to yourself, connecting with others, and ultimately trying to find your purpose in this life. And it's just like makes my heart soar that I have you on my purpose to talk about your purpose. And today we're going to get into some of our pain too that we've been through. And I just want to say thank you for being so open.
Thanks, Alyson. Yeah. Well, it wasn't always easy. You know, it's taken.
In fact, it mostly wasn't easy.
Yeah, no, it's taken a lot of work, and it's worth it. It's been worth all of it.
Every piece was important.
Yes, still is.
When you sit here, we talked about this as a thread that exists no matter what the theme is. You wouldn't change any of it because it's brought you here today.
Well, guess what? You can't fucking anyway. So
nice try. That's a very good point, my friend. That is a very good point. I had to learn that the hard way. Mm-hmm. So we're going to talk about spiritual gurus, a bit of narcissism. I'm sure ego will come up. And why don't we start at how did you begin your spiritual journey?
So I don't think there's one point. I think it's been multiple moments throughout. However, I would say that one that really sticks out for me, one moment, because I feel like it was like I'd go through a transformation and then I'd be pulled back into old patterns, old ways, right? Whether it was like an initial transformation that was physical, right? From cleaning up my health to becoming, a personal trainer, really focusing on a body transformation, and then kind of going back into some old patterns. And but I would say it was 2017, I believe. On a flight back from LA, had a seizure on a flight back from LA. And, I got everything checked out, right?
Scary.
And I came back. Yeah, right. We were middle of the air. They
so scary.
had me on oxygen, offered to land the plane. I'm like, no. I'm like, finish my margarita. I'm like, I'm fine.
It's all good.
Yeah. This is, but I was in the middle of, I was working in a career that had been great, and then things started to go south. I started to question the integrity of what I was doing, but yet I continued to stay in this place and collect a check and, all the things, the safety, the security, and staying with it. And I think that was a bit of a spiritual awakening for me. That seizure was like my heart, my body saying, like, you're not listening.
Right.
So that led me down, kind of on a healing journey. It took a little while, but come end of September of 2018, I can profoundly remember I was on business up in Cincinnati looking out just at the hotel bar, looking at a shitty, dismal day in Cincinnati and listening to this bartender. I'm sitting there having a drink because it was the end of the day. That's what you do, right? You just go get a drink, have a cocktail. Anyways, so sitting there and I'm like, I've got this drink and this guy's singing his sad story, and I'm just like looking at him, I'm like, what the hell are you doing? Like,
so you had that like out of body experience.
I was observed, like, Keith, what are you doing here, right? Like, so I actually like left my drink, I would think I was drinking like a bourbon and on the rocks. I just left it there, paid my tab, went up to my room, got on my phone, and some guy was doing like a Sober October challenge, and he wanted like $100 or something to join his group. I'm like, fucking, I don't need to pay. But this is a sign.
Right.
And so that was at last, I think it was September 28th, 2018, and I did the 30 days. I was like, okay, good job, buddy. You did that. I feel great. Let's see if you can make it 90 days, right? So I raised the bar, and I'm like, okay, see if you can get through the holidays, right? Thanksgiving, Christmas.
So hard. That's
right?
the ultimate, for sure.
So I challenged myself, and now all of a sudden we're getting close to New Year's, and like my friend group's like, oh, well, you're going to party with us for New Year's, right?
That's what we did.
Right. And I'm like, actually, no, I'm not. And honestly, at that point, I think it was less about the alcohol, and it was really like the first time I put a stake in the ground for myself, and it was more of an act of just a demonstration of self-love. And
That's beautiful.
And I haven't had a drink since. And so, and I say that just because, like, hey, that was a lifestyle change for me.
Massive.
Like, listen, I don't know judgment around
Yeah,
alcohol, whatever
You're talking
works,
about you.
whatever
You're
works,
talking about you.
yeah, whatever works for you.
Yep.
But for me, I had often thought, like, what would life be like without alcohol? I mean, it was something you started like teenage, like fun, booze. It was like hand in hand, right? I'm like, well, you're not getting any younger. If you want to see what life would be without alcohol, maybe give it a shot now. And so I think that was a defining moment. Again, not so much about the alcohol, but me starting to really listen to my heart, to my soul, instead of what society and what all the whispers were there, right?
And
then it became
the email or whatever it was, right? Sober October. You were like, oh, I call them lily pads.
Well, but the scream was like almost 8 months earlier when I had the seizure.
You had the seizure,
right? But it still took me some time.
But then that was implanted,
right?
And that's important because you don't necessarily. Well, I don't say you're going to need to. You don't necessarily always act right away.
Yeah.
And seeds are planted to be watered,
right,
and to be harvested.
So
it usually doesn't happen.
And it was less like I like flexed that muscle for the first time, right? It was kind of like, okay, now I know how to do that for me. So what I found was I just started making more decisions
for you
from my soul, from here, rather than all the things we've been conditioned with, what I'm supposed to be doing.
Everything you were told of who you were supposed to be.
All of the program.
All of the programming.
Right. What we're supposed to do to be successful in life. And, I started to realize that I had been seeking so much of my own personal happiness from external sources. And I think that was that one, defining moment that was like, oh, wait, I get to choose? Like, I can...
You stepped into your personal power.
Right.
Probably for the first time in your life.
Yeah. No, that was... So I would say that's probably, when my real journey started. I mean, I can reflect back now and I can see many moments where there were whispers and things, but I wasn't listening.
Yeah. And you weren't acting on it.
No. And I was just going back to these old patterns and practices. So, that really just got me on my journey. Then I ended up, getting back into coaching and helping people on a holistic sense. And then I found the breath. Right. And then now that's the foundation of my coaching practice. Because what I found with breath work was, I had gone to therapy, and in therapy, they were telling me I'm overthinking, and I was like, okay, well, you need to stop overthinking. I was like, okay, well, how do I do that? Then I found the breath, right? Because
certainly not through another cognitive processing. That's not going to happen.
I wanted to call that therapist and be like, hey, you got anybody that's overthinking, just send them to me. Because
I got this shit figured out. Well, I will lead them down the different path.
Well, and honestly,
you can only do it yourself.
And honestly, I've worked with some some of my clients who are
therapists. Of course.
And
that makes sense.
They have now brought the breath into their practice.
That's beautiful.
Because now not only, because, here we're trying to help the mind with more thinking, right? It's just like that mental effort just defeats itself. But when we get into breath work, what we can do now is kind of get under the hood and start to get into the somatics, right? Where you can actually feel some of the things you need to feel to let it go and to create space to create new grooves. So that was
the new patterns that you get to choose.
And so that was when I found the breath.
When you found breath, I just recall you it was like a fucking rocket.
Accelerating.
You were like, "This is it." Like I remember you calling me. You're like, "I'm doing this." I was like, "That is so." And you were early, by the way. I mean, now as we sit Wim Hof and all sorts of other things, it's really taken off. But it resonated with you, and you were one of the first people I knew.
The first session I had, I actually wrote in my journal that I was going to work with this guy, and this was going to be the foundation of my coaching practice. And here we are, 5 years later.
And very much.
And it is. And I think that's also a testament to the breath and what you can create when you are intentional with, your mind, your body, and your breath. That we can manifest some pretty amazing things.
Yeah, we're capable of anything.
Yeah.
So mine was a book. I had read a couple spiritual books, and my best friend Jeannie, shout out to Jeannie. She'd been telling me for like 7 or 8 years, "You got to read this book, Many Lives, Many Masters. You got to read it. You got to read it." And I went. My anxiety was crippling. I was not living. I was physically very sick. I was emotionally split. I was energetically split. I mean, I was split, right? I wasn't in my core being. And I went on vacation, and I brought my Kindle. Same sort of deal, right? There it was. I'm like, oh my God, this is the book she's been telling me about for years. Let me just read it. I read that book 3 times in 4 days. I couldn't stop. I read it over and over again. And it got me to understand that so much of what I was carrying was not from this life. Because I'm like, why am I afraid to go into the subway without a glass of water for fear that the subway is going to stop and I'm not going to be able, if I'm choking? I mean, that's how deep this was. And I was like, oh my God, I was probably buried alive. It just all clicked.
That book blew my mind, by the way.
Blew my mind. I mean, that was my gateway, right? And that was, I started reading spiritual books in 2009. I think that was 2011 when I really just dove in. And then I came back, and as I was on the plane, which was a place that was very anxiety-ridden for me because it's a tube. There's not as much oxygen as there is if you're outside, right? That was another huge trigger for me. I sat, and I guess I had sort of meditated before. There were people that were kind of talking about it. It was early on. I meditated, and I visualized dropping all my anxiety out the bottom of the plane as we took off from the island. And I was like, my life is going to be different from this moment on. And I couldn't get enough. I became a student of the spiritual realm. I couldn't stop reading. There was no internet, really. I mean, there was, but there was no social media, right? So I lived in New York. I went to lectures. I met people from LA. I started to develop a network of friends that were into it. And that was my beginning, right? And so I think it's really important. However, there were many people in our path, good, bad, and indifferent, that led us to today. And that's really what I want to focus on, because you mentioned this a few times in your story, and I say this pretty much on every episode of The Space Between. It's a you job. It's an inside job. And we have been through hell as a collective. I really say since 2015, 2016, but a lot of people will market that as 2020, right? It was that sort of big collective awakening. Right. We are awakening to the fact that we have, for many people, unknowingly given our power away to educational institutions, to family members, to businesses, to bosses, and based on our topic today, to spiritual gurus. And there was a lot of those people in both of our paths because we've shared a lot of stories.
Oh, yeah. And I mean, that's what for people who are listening, is just to really, again, like you said, it's an inner job. And in this path that you're on, as you navigate the people that you work with, having discernment around what really feels good in your body, and to listen to the whispers, to listen to these feelings like, this just doesn't feel right. Guess what? Go.
I'm out.
Yeah.
And I didn't do that. And you didn't do that.
Well, we didn't know.
We didn't know. Nobody, first of all, nobody was talking. The podcast thing wasn't happening, right?
No,
there
and
wasn't forum.
when you're so excited about this new beginning, and you just want more, you want to learn more, and you're like, oh, this person has what I want.
Yeah.
And
they're doing it. They can do it for me.
And there can also be this feeling of like almost you need that person, right? And when you start to get into a relationship where you think you might need that person and they feed on that, that's when you might want to check in a little bit.
Right. So you have coaches, you have authors, you have podcasters, me included, right?
Right.
You have facilitators. There's a lot of different sort of terms and vernacular for what people who are potentially very innocently trying to help people, all the way to down or around, right, to the people that are completely taking advantage, manipulating for personal power, financial gain, right? So there's this massive spectrum that exists. And, you know, you sit here now, you are one of those people. I am one of those people, right? We have a public forum, we share, you charge for your services. I'm eventually going to figure out something with the community.
Yeah, and we're going to resonate with some, and some we're not.
Right. And not everybody's for you. You'll know.
Yeah. And you have to, and as practitioners, as people who are leading, we have to be okay with not being liked.
Right.
Right? You have to be okay with that and understand that, like, it's not personal. It's just your energy may not resonate with that person.
Right.
So if you start to pull away from somebody,
right,
and they start to chase or come after you, that's another, like, red flag.
Totally.
Right. Like, there's people that I've seen one time and they never come back again.
Yeah. And that's fine.
They know where I'm at. They can find me. I'm not going to be like texting them incessantly trying to get them to come back in or something. Like, that's
right. Right. And I think the thing that is really important is, as you, and I talk a lot on the podcast about curiosity, because so much of your spiritual journey will come from your curiosity, right? And you kind of march down different paths, and, you know, these are the things. There's also the people that are introduced to your path that will, you know, are there for, everything is there for you, right? It's your universe. It's Y-O-U-inverse. It's there for you.
right.
In what I believe a predetermined life path that you've decided, and that you're on the journey to come back to yourself and to serve, right? I mean, that's just my belief, whatever people think. So you have, you know, books, you have people, you have shows, you have all these things that you're consuming. What I found is that I was over-consuming. There was a point in my journey where I went from podcast to book, because it started with books. And then I would read one book, and then there'd be a conflicting opinion, say on like the Akashic Records, right? Someone would talk about it on a podcast, and then there would be a book, and I'm like, oh, this doesn't make sense. And then all of a sudden I realized inherently, I'm like, wait, I should just go into a meditation and figure out what the Akashic Records is for me. And I straight up saw my guardian angel who walked me into the records. And I was like, okay, I don't need to listen to fucking anybody else about the Akashic Records. And that was a big aha moment for me, because I intentionally went into that meditation saying, I feel a little uneasy.
Yeah.
And I think I've given my power away. So universe, guides, my personal squad, right? Show me what I'm supposed to know about this. And it was beyond a reason of doubt.
Right.
That this is what it is.
Well, and I love that that's where you went, because all the people that we're getting information from are just humans just like you and me that figured it out.
In their universe.
Right. So
that was for them.
So everything's open to change. Right?
And interpretation and perspective.
How often do we find something that we thought was 100% fact and is now like completely
categorically
gone, right?
Especially now.
So, and I think that's a big part of what I really aim to do, that I'm still daily practice.
It is. It never goes away.
Is listening and believing, having the courage to believe in yourself. Totally. And that's really a big part of what, I aim to help demonstrate and to share, and, to, as part of my coaching program, right, is to be able to like, don't worry about what, we'll gather your information, but then come up with your own. Yeah.
Take a step back, and the word that always comes up for me when I'm talking about this is the integration piece. And I had Jacob, who's an amazing coach and facilitator, and what I would kind of call like the new guard, right? He's in his early 30s, and this is a different crop of people that are coming up that are like hip to all the bullshit. Like they see so clearly. We've had to work really hard for our clarity. It almost seems to me like a lot of that generation is born with a certain amount of clarity that they didn't even have to work for. Right? Because they were born into such a different reality than we were. We're kind of the bridge generation between the old and new, but these younger people, I've had a lot of them on the podcast, and I'm friends with a lot of people in their 20s. It's fucking awesome.
Yeah.
But we had to surf through a lot of muck, which I'm sure they did too. It just seems like a different energy.
Yeah, I watched your episode with him.
And he's, all about the integration, which
is
so important.
Well, and this is something that I and my business partner, Michael Hernandez, we talk about often, and I've seen it in what I would call very high-end situations, retreat even, where people are taken on an experience, a journey, a breath journey, we'll just say, and then just left with their feelings, and there's no opportunity.
Everything comes up, and then it's like, bye.
Right.
That's
and people are like,
that's cruel.
What the hell just happened? Yeah. Here I find myself as a participant holding space for people because I just saw something that would never happen. Yeah. And under my watch. Right. And so integration, like all this spiritual stuff, doesn't mean shit if you're not grounding it down and bringing it into your reality.
For what it feels for you.
And into your daily life, right? It would be nice if we could sit on a mountaintop like Buddha all day, but we have jobs, we have families, we have things, right?
Yeah, so we have responsibility,
It's how can we take these things that we learn and integrate it into our daily life so that we can just be better for our communities, be better for our families, and just be, better humans in this, and sometimes wild, call it the Matrix or whatever it is that we're in.
Reality I think it's a movie, but that's
right. But this is what the world that we're choosing to live in.
Yep, we made it. We made the choice. We're here.
And when we talk about some of this, navigating this spiritual or healing or wellness landscape, whatever you want to call it, I tend to really gravitate towards people who are grounded in reality. They're not just always up in the clouds, because it just becomes another form of escapism. They might as well just be doing drugs or whatever, because you're just...
A plant medicine ceremony is not that much different when it comes to the physicality of what it does to you than what we were doing in our 20s down on Howard Avenue. It's a different external.
Right.
What you're doing
is... But if you're not taking the insights that you glean in these experiences and then sitting with someone and discussing how can I take this information...
this is what came up, and what do I do with it now?
And make change in my life, then you're just going to create more suffering in your life anyways, because it's just another form of addiction.
Exactly, right. Yeah. It just continues to circle on. And, something which is now we're kind of getting down to the, real spiritual guru thing is that I sit here and I look at someone like you who has, I know your heart. You've shared your heart with me. You've shared your heart with so many people. I've known you a very long time. And there are not many of you out there. I think people will transform. This has always been you, this heart that you've had. Many people don't. And for whatever reason, it's their traumas, it's their situation, they were abused, and all of that is valid, and I'm not invalidating that at all.
Right.
But what you have to understand, the listeners, is that the intention to which someone is wanting to help you connect to yourself or make those changes or whatever it is that you want to do with your life, the pureness of them is incredibly important. Yes. And it is a rare case as we sit here today in the space between to find those people. Yeah, I believe more will come in this energy, but you and I have been through the ringer.
Well, yeah, and I mean, it can be a very thirsty environment for individuals who may not have the best intentions, that have been hurt and have gone on this path and are now, finding people that are very vulnerable because they're open and seeking help. They're seeking healing. They're seeking something other than what's happening in their life right now because
they're stepping into something that they're being called to.
Well, listen, like maybe mine was a seizure, like typically an awakening or something leading someone on a healing path takes some kind of a rock bottom.
Totally.
Really,
it's something for the most part.
Usually it's a pain. It's a deep pain.
Totally.
And this leaves people, you find people that are in very vulnerable situations that are seeking like, oh, wow, you mean like I can learn breath work and that might help me get over my anxiety and like all this hope, right? That's there.
I did it. And then what you find with so many coaches out there, and it's funny because now this is all coming full circle to me. You don't really do this, which I'm not dogging people that do. There's the pure heart of people. But if it's all about my story, this is how I healed myself.
Ego.
And I hate to say it, if that's the main track and it's not about you and it's about them, that's a red flag. Do you agree?
Oh, big one. Big one.
Because every then time you're someone that knows you need to heal and you're like, oh, this person did it. And they're telling me they know how they can do it for me. Or even if it's disguised as I can show you so you can do it for yourself. If that story is all about them, it's not a good sign.
I would agree wholeheartedly on that.
It's not a good sign.
Right.
That may have worked 5-6 years ago when people were like less enlightened and the energy was different, but we're in 2020. We're about to go into 2025. Like that's not the way anymore. That's driven potentially in narcissism.
Oh, for sure. And that's where, like you said, just being mindful if you notice that they're constantly talking about themselves and their stories and how great they are
or how tragic it was. It doesn't even matter what it is. If it's all about them, it ain't about you.
Right. They're talking about their trauma all the time or their, it's like I think listening. You want to find someone who's doing more listening than talking.
Yeah. And that wants to really understand what you've been through.
Yes.
And it's not, well, I would do this or I would do that. This work has been super intentional. I say every episode, I'm not here to tell you what to do. I'm here to share what happened to me.
Right.
And to bring people that I connect with that are open and their hearts are open to share.
Well, and like we talked,
their experience, like
we talked about before the episode, like this is part of your healing. This is part of your growth. That things you level up, and things come out where you're like, wow, I just was more brave than I ever thought I would be on a microphone with a camera in front of me, right? Yeah. And I had those thoughts as I drove here today of like.
What am I going to say?
Just like and it all I think a lot of it just comes down to courage. Having I had to have courage to say, I'm not going to drink anymore. And, and then, to have courage to speak your truth and not really be worried about how it's going to be received by everyone, and that the hope that maybe just one person that this could, connect with, right? And having courage.
That's a beautiful word. And when you have courage, you just automatically become more open, because you have to let the fear go to be brave.
Yes.
And that's
it's one or the other.
Space between, that is very polarity is true in that. So you and I have had partnerships, pseudo partnerships with other people in the spiritual community.
Yeah.
Some have gone well, some have not.
Right.
What have you learned from those that did not go the way you thought they would go? Some of those gurus that you met along the way?
I think it's, again, coming back to really listening to what's in alignment with you, your values, your integrity, and recognizing when things are not, and being able to set boundaries. And that's not always easy, especially when you invest a lot of your time and energy and money, identity.
All of it. And your soul. In these types of situations, you're bearing your soul to people.
Oh, yeah. There's cords that have to be cut.
Oh, for sure. What do you mean by that for people that don't know?
Well, there's just energetically, when you are being vulnerable and you're sharing, things that are going on in your life that are your deepest things, and then just being, this can just go for relationships of any sort. Yeah. There's an energetic connection when you open your heart to somebody that
could be this lifetime or others.
Yeah, well, and it's interesting.
There's no time, really.
It's even interesting, I think we talked about this the other day, in certain situations where people that, maybe you've set boundaries, and when you start to cut that cord, all of a sudden the texts come in even more rampantly. It's almost like
when you make the decision to interject, people, they will always come back. It's like a bad boyfriend, girlfriend, partner. The minute you get over it, they're up your ass, and it's the same thing with these people too.
Right.
But you're bearing your soul in a different way. I went through a program where I cracked open. I now, many years later, I don't believe the integration, but I think was really there. But I do believe that I found so many pieces of myself through that. I'm so grateful for it. I met the most amazing people. There was so much good, but ultimately that relationship from that program turned into a different relationship. And there's an unbelievable amount of, and I will say this very clearly, whether on purpose or subliminally, a manipulation that can happen if that person is not grounded in the goodness of service,
right,
without ego. That shit is dangerous.
Well, and I think the biggest red flag is when you notice that this person that is asking you to do all these things, right? Whatever it is that they're coaching or teaching, but yet they're not actually living it, right? Or they haven't been doing their own work.
Yeah.
Because listen, not all, there's still, I'm sure you learned plenty of lessons and so many great things from these people, but
you have to be really careful.
Yeah.
You have to be really careful. And I think when you go through those type of experiences, it's all for you, right? Staying out of victimization is important. Moving through somatically, psychologically, spiritually, it almost is like you meet someone, you call them a mentor or whatever it is, and you're young in your spiritual practice and you look up to them because that's just the human structure, right? It's just what we know and it's what we've always done. And when that happens and you're inevitably hurt, right? There's a lot of hurt, and there can be heartbreak, and I'm sure a lot of people will resonate with this message. You have to really understand, because now I've been out of it for a while, that was all part of, I would never be here had I not gone through this. So now as I sit here today, I'm in immense gratitude, and you and I share this.
Same.
For that experience.
Absolutely.
Right?
I mean, like we said, we can't change anything. And all of those experiences have led me exactly to where I am now.
Right.
And to be able to now, maybe just us sharing our story with others, right? To help other people maybe avoid some of the pitfalls that we...
And that's my point, right? You can't avoid, there's certain things in your life that are predetermined that you can't avoid.
Right.
But ultimately, moving into this new energy, this new age, things are more wild than they've ever been. I mean, the foundation is very shaky. If you can avoid being manipulated and taken advantage of,
right.
I think there's been times in my life where I think, if I would have just, like the sliding doors, that movie, like if I had gone on the train or not gone, you can't get so granular, but there are times when it's not only for you, it's for them.
Well, sure.
Because if they keep getting away with it, then
and for the community,
it's like a cycle. It's abusive, really.
Well, and for the community and in general, that like
and for the collective energy,
some of this stuff needs to be aired out so that we can clean it up, and like maybe hopefully those folks that haven't had the best intentions will get the help that they need.
Exactly.
And
everyone can start. This is how we started this today. Everyone gets to write their own story.
Correct.
And they get to change. And I believe that, we love a good comeback.
Hell yeah.
Especially here in America. The Americans love nothing more than like a fantastic kick-ass comeback. And so even if you're someone that resonates with this, that's listening to it, that maybe feels like they've been that person, that doesn't have to be your story.
No.
You get to make it right. You get to make yourself whole.
Correct.
The new age that we're in is an age of transparency and transformation. And if any of this is resonating with you, you're not a coach, you're not a spirit, you're just doing whatever, you're in your business, you're working for somebody, and your intentions aren't pure, and it's for personal gain, and people are exploited, and people are stepped on the way, it's a good time to start thinking about how you're going to shift that.
Yeah, it's not just something that's only in this space.
In everything.
Right. I mean, when we talk about this is like in the corporate space, I've experienced very similar.
Oh my God. I didn't even think about, that's a whole other thing I can do. I mean, I left corporate America for many of those reasons.
Right. So, I mean, it's kind of a generalized, when we talk about a guru. First of all, if they call themselves a guru,
run.
Run.
Yeah. There's a documentary that just came out that you and I were talking about yesterday, Guru Jagat. I don't even know, Katie
Breath
something.
of Fire.
Yeah.
Yeah, a friend of mine sent that to me and was like, hey, does this sound familiar to you?
Yeah, and a lot of people in New York, when I first got into my spiritual practice, were following her. Massively popular with women.
Yeah.
It was yoga, it was breath, it was a cult. It was a straight cult.
It was a Kundalini thing or something, right?
I think it was rooted in the Kundalini, the headdress and like the whole, And I'm sure, listen, I'm not here to judge her.
No.
But a lot of people were hurt.
Right.
And,
and
she has good and bad too. Anybody that, we're talking about has great qualities. And again, it's the dichotomy of the polarity that we live in.
Yeah. And it's just like that fundamental principle, like do no harm.
Yeah.
Can we just start there?
Right. And I'm so glad that you said that, because if somebody's saying like, oh, well, what's the flip side of that? The flip side is, I'm going to do right by myself, and I'm going to do right by others. And it is, even in like my mortgage business, right? Or you think about, you're an entrepreneur, right? You have those moments that are so subtle where you could make a decision and you could easily just like slip into a different energy or slip into a different timeline. And it's not just generally, it's not one big decision that causes you to fall.
Mm-mm.
It's a series of, and we're seeing that.
It's all the small choices that we make that build up, and we tend to forget that, right? Yeah. It's like all the work that we've done up until now. Sometimes that's going to show up like 2 months from now, and you're like, oh, was What was I worrying about?
Totally.
Like, you know?
Totally.
But it's all an energy. And, you know, every choice that we make that's, whether it's in alignment or out of alignment, it's going to lead you in that direction, right? So, you know, it's a big part of our practice is just to continue to walk in integrity and trust that when we do that,
whatever's supposed to come,
whatever's meant will come, right? And that's, you know,
and if
it's a pretty basic principle.
If you're tuned into yourself, which is, you know, ultimately what we're saying, if you're tapped into you, you're depending on, you know, kind of what your jam is, you'll either maybe feel it or something will pop into your mind's eye, or you'll audibly, like I'm clairaudient, so I can hear things, right? There'll be something. It will be another person who literally stands in front of you. Like, it doesn't matter what it is. The presence, and this is one piece that and I kind of want to end here, the presence you need to have in order to be able to discern is what it's all about. Don't you agree?
Yes. Well, and that can be challenging in this
so
distracting world that we're living in, right?
It's really hard.
And that was where the breath was so big for me, because it stripped away all the distractions and brought me to here. It's like, you know, talk about like intuition practice, right? To really like understand and remember. That's the key word. It's a remembering. It's always there.
It's our it's our natural state.
Yeah, wholeness is not something we seek. It's something we remember. Yeah. And the breath has been able to do that for me. And then once you go, oh, wait a minute, I have like this intelligence within me here. Let me start using it. It's just like anything else. The more you practice, now you're like, okay, I'm not looking for answers out here. I can go like, yeah, that's a hell no. Yeah. Right?
How clear do you feel sitting here now?
Very.
I'm crystal fucking clear. It almost scares me. You and I talk about this a lot. I was very fogged and my whole life, but overnight it felt like the fog lifted. Yeah. And I was completely in myself. And I can see, as I sit here today, what is a chess piece and how everything is just connected. And I can sort of, I feel like this is just one big video game. I'm like, okay, this is what's happening.
Well, it's awareness, you know, and it's something that we have to tap into and practice. Yeah. And, you know, that's why we're here.
Yeah. And for those that feel fogged and for those that have been harmed, it's not always going to be that way. Because the only thing we know, and I say this all the time, is that change is the only thing we can trust if you don't have any trust for anything else. Like, nothing stays the same.
That's right.
It's about the only truth that exists in the collective.
I saw that conversation with your husband.
Yeah. I know you're so proud of him.
Yes.
But, so I guess our time is up, which it goes so fast.
Yeah.
I mean, what is time anyway? But I have a clock, so I have to follow it. As far as spiritual gurus, whatever that looks like, what do you think is going to happen in the collective in the next few years? Because we're seeing an incredible unveiling. Again, you can run, but you can't hide. Where do you think this leads?
Hell if I know.
You're excited to find out. I'm going to sit back with my popcorn and be like, yeah. I just think it's just going to keep happening. And what happened at a celebrity level is now going to happen in the spiritual community. I think it's just going to kick up.
I mean, if I were to guess, I just think that there's just going to be more come to light. More and more is just going to come to light. And I think it's an opportunity for everybody to step into it.
Totally agree. Yeah. Well, do you have any parting thoughts for the audience today?
No, I just thank you for having me today. It's been fun. Flew by.
I know, it's so quick. It goes too quick. It's kind of sad. I'm like, oh, I want to talk to you. I mean, we'll do this again.
Yeah, if anybody wants to find me, I'm happy to answer any questions. Keith Kemp Breath on Instagram is the best way to get me.
And we'll link you below and all of the other things that you have going on so everyone can see and connect with you. And I just love you so much, and I'm so glad that you're here with me today. It's so special.
Thank you.
Thank you for sharing your experience with us.
Absolutely.
And to all the listeners, thank you so much for joining us and spending your time and your energy in the space between. And we will see you again very soon. Thank you so much for joining us in the space between. We hope this conversation sparked connection for you. Please like, subscribe, and share this episode with someone who will find value. And make sure to tune into our next episode as we continue the journey into the core themes of our lives. We'll see you again in the space between.